Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we will discuss about lexical equivalence. So what will we learn? The first is understanding of lexical equivalence. Next is the types that exist in lexical equivalence. Then example of lexical equivalent. And the last is what the problem are contained in the translation. With me, Wahyu Asri Lutfia Anjani, English Literature, Ahmad Dahlan University. In the first part is introduction. According to Oxford Learned Dictionary, equivalent is equal in value, amount, meaning, importance. While equivalence is a thing, amount, word. That is equivalence. Then according to KBBI, equivalent is a word or phrase in a language that has a parallel meaning with a word or phrase in another language. For example, mission in French is equivalent to the word house in Indonesia. Then according to Vinay and Burnett in the Newmark in Mujianto, in the field of translation, the term equivalent can be defined as the thing, condition, or result of an act of translation that is executed when the text in the TL or target language is placed in the same situation with the situation in the original text but using a completely different language. So we continue to the next is when concepts are shared. The first is non-literal equivalence. One word from SL into several number words of TL or descriptive phrase and vice versa. This means that also most certain concepts are also found in the receptor language. They are expressed in different ways. Secondary meaning and figurative meaning are usually completely dissimilar. Examples are figurative and non-figurative, positive and negative. Then the second is using related word as equivalence. In the concept of using related word as equivalent, it is divided into three parts. The first part is using synonym, then negative antonym, and the last is using reciprocal lexical item. We will discuss about the first one is using synonym. Lexical, in the using synonym, lexical item having a same or nearly the same meaning. Two languages often do not have a matching of synonym to a given concept, may have different connotation. For the example is cop and policeman. Cop has the same meaning as police, but its word and spelled differently. And then is negating antonym. In the negative antonym, use when no direct equivalent exists. For example, instead of bad but say not good. Be aware of collocation to make sure it is appropriate in the context. So in the translation, must use good word. In this context, can be used if there is not direct equivalent. So pay attention to collocation to make sure they fit to the context. And the third is using reciprocal lexical item. In the using reciprocal lexical item, often performed by changing active to passive voice or versa. For the example is Farah cook instant noodle for me to I cook instant noodle by Farah. So in this word, we can change the active sentence to the passive sentence. And the third is generic specific word. In the generic specific words, that specific mean to be generic. For the example, daily bread. Bread is used to a specific word but represent a general idea too. So this word bread can be specific word. It also has a general meaning in the sentence. Then secondary and figurative sentence. Will almost never be translated with an equivalent item of the source language and need adjust in the translation. For the example, get a kick out of it. the same meaning with enjoy. So in the translator, there are things that need to be translated with items that are equivalent to the source language and need to be adjusted in the translation. Uh, Translation when concepts are unknown. It is usually caused by the difference of culture. The translation should choose between form and function. In the concept are unknown, there is the side to three part. The first is using generic word with a descriptive phrase, then borrowing the ESL word or loan word, and then using a culture substitute. First one is using generic word with a descriptive phrase. For example, from emphasis is see. It's same meaning with flat water in New Guinea. Then, example of function emphasis, centurion is the same meaning with men that commands 100 soldiers in Mexico. Then example for emphasizing both things. Anchors, it's same meaning with iron to which they attach reports in order that they would get stuck in the dirt so it boat would not move in Mexico. And the second part is borrowing the ESL word or loan word. For the example is dove. Dove is a bird called dove in Papua New Guinea. And then Satan. Satan is rule of the diamond in the Philippines. Then the third is using a cultural substitute. For the example is coyote and wolf. Pay attention to the existence of anachronistic equivalent which show the word that even does not exist in the source text. And the last part is some problem in finding lexical equivalence. The first is keywords that are sometimes thematic. Thus, the translation should adjust the translation specifically. For example, cooking. Cooking is the have same meaning with photosynthesis. Then, word combination and false literal translation. For the example, is greenhouse. It's same meaning with rumah hijau. False friend, they are words in the source language which look very much like word in the TL because they are cognate with them, but in fact mean something different. For the example, in the Spanish word assistir does not mean to assist but to attend. Alright, I think that's all for me. Hopefully it can be useful and understandable. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.